Once upon a time, there was a holly dog. You like that start of the story? Yeah. This holly dog was not actually a dog. She was a dragon. You don't even know what a dragon is? Never seen one? You're quite lucky that way, in fact. See, dragons, they're long extinct now, but they did exist once. And there was a dragon called Holly Dog. Pumpkin, if you don't like the story, you don't have to listen. You gonna leave? Okay. So this Holly Dog, so this was before there was such a thing as dogs, which is where you get the confusion that you've got dog in her name, so you assume she's a dog, but actually she's a dragon because dogs didn't exist yet, but dragons still existed. Now, she was a young dragon, not too sure of her place in the world yet, not too sure of who she is and what she believes in, her principles. But she had to figure it out quickly because there was, in fact, an evil wizard. And this evil wizard, he generally had alliances with dragons. You know, keep his tower safe from neighboring knights, that kind of thing. And then he would do some alchemy, transmutation, that kind of shenanigans, make some gold, and, you know, dragons really like gold. But Holly Dog the dragon, she wasn't so sure if gold was really worth eating so many knights who were really just trying to rescue all manner of creatures from the evil wizards. Because evil wizards, they're pretty big on, you know, sacrifices and stuff. So they'd just be stealing away humans and livestock and all kinds of things just to, you know, do some wicked magic that requires some sacrifices. So Holly Dog the dragon, she wasn't so sure about this. She was less materialistic than other dragons. And so she questioned it. And one day, she came across a fellow. Not quite a knight. He was not quite burly enough to be a knight. But he had a sort of inkling of chivalry, the kind of knight shenanigans, you know. If he had the strength for it, he probably would be a knight. But since he couldn't be, he was a philosopher instead. And he thought a lot about morals and principles and all of that. And they started having this conversation because Holly Dog, she had approached him. She saw his, he had all these pencils and paper, which is pretty fancy, honestly. He probably had some money, too. Having paper in that day and age. And she figured that he was a scholar of some sort. And she was right, him being a philosopher. And they struck up this conversation. This philosopher, scholar, fellow, he was quite brave, despite the fact that she was a dragon. And the fact that she was talking to him, and she's a little bit threatening, to be honest, but he knows not to judge by appearance. So they started their conversation, and it ended up being really interesting. And they both started to wonder quite a few things. But the main thing that Holly Dog wondered was that, well, it was less wondering, and it was more confirmation of what she already suspected, which is that she did not want an alliance with an evil wizard. She wanted to do something better with her life. And now the thing about dragons is they're actually quite gifted in healing magic. And she was also told by this philosopher that one of the reasons he had all this money to be having all these paper and stuff is that most of his family had died, so he had inherited quite a lot of wealth. Because his family, they were fairly well off, but even being as well off as they were dying. Everyone was dying. The plague was happening. It was unfortunate. It wasn't a great time. So she was like, wait a second, I have healing magic. I don't want to be, an alliance with an evil wizard. So then, she decided she was gonna be a doctor dragon. Yeah. An excellent doctor dragon. She was very determined. She was not going to be humble about this. She was like, once I do this, I'm going to be so good at it. Are you falling asleep, Holly Dog? And she was just going to be the best doctor in the land. She was going to outrank human doctors in that she had magic and, honestly, more science grasping than they did in that day and age. Yeah. So, she starts training, which really didn't require that much, because she just kind of got a natural capacity for magic, and healing magic in particular. So, she does a little bit of training, does a quick training arc, and then she is prepared. Now, the main challenge that she had right away is that people obviously are like, a dragon, it wants to eat me, which is fair because most dragons do in fact want to eat you. But Hollydog the dragon doctor did not want to eat you. So, she slowly but surely, with the help of the would-be knight, but actually a philosopher who inherited a bunch of money, they worked as a team to get people a little bit more comfortable. Slowly but surely, like, hey, we're gonna heal you. Like, obviously you're afraid that that the dragon's gonna eat you, but the reality is that if you're gonna die anyways, you might as well take the risk. And slowly but surely, a whole bunch of people who would have died were not dead and were not eaten. They were healed. And people started to realize, wait a second, this dragon doctor, she really is what she says she is. She really wants to heal us. She really isn't allianced with evil wizards. Now, of course, this was problematic for the evil wizard because other dragons were then realizing that, hey, maybe I want to do something else with my life. Because these evil wizards are not very good bosses, to be honest. So in our last attempt to finish that story, we ran out of batteries, so today we're finishing it. Hopefully both of us remember where we're at. We've got Hollydog, the dragon doctor, the wizards have gone after her. The evil wizards, because they're like, this isn't working, for multiple reasons. The first being that her being a doctor that's healing people is making people realize, hey, wait a second, dragons aren't that scary, actually. And actually, sometimes they're nice, and maybe they're not as much of a threat as we figure they are. And then the other problem is that the other dragons are realizing, wait a second, we can, like, get our lack of humbleness and our wanting to be prideful and have people, like, think really highly of us. We can get that another way. We don't actually need all the gold. And people don't actually care about us having all the gold, to be honest. So they're starting to consider, hey, maybe they could go different paths, like dragon doctors as well. So the evil wizards, they're like, having none of that. So they go after Hollydog the dragon doctor. But the problem with that, which they don't recognize, is that one, all of the humans obviously are on the side of Hollydog the dragon doctor, which isn't that problematic given evil wizards very powerful. But the other issue is the dragons, who are technically their employees, although really it's, well, technically they have an alliance, but really it's an employee-boss situation because the evil wizards don't really treat them as equals. And yeah, it's not ideal. It's not ideal. Which is also part of why the dragons are like, hey, maybe we're gonna not be part of this. Maybe we don't want to be allianced to the evil wizards. But so anyways, the evil wizards going after Hollydog the dragon doctor, that's rather problematic for them because the dragons, well, dragons have a lot of solidarity, you know? They're very group mentality, they stand up for each other. So even if they technically are employed by the evil wizards, they'd far sooner choose another dragon over the evil wizards, even if that dragon has different principles than them. So, suddenly, the evil wizards are faced with Hollydog the dragon doctor, all of the humans, and all of their other dragons. You come to say hi, Pumpkin? And that is how the evil wizards went extinct. No more evil wizards. Do you disagree, Pumpkin? Are you an evil wizard? You know, I think you might be, to be honest. Yeah, that might ruin the story, because you aren't actually an evil wizard, so they're not extinct. You are the last evil wizard, in fact. The last evil wizard. Yeah. Okay, well, the dragons and then with humans almost made the evil wizards extinct, except for Sir Pumpkin, who's secretly an evil wizard. Yeah. And eventually the dragons would also come to an end, as all things must. But that is the story of Holly Dog, the Dragon Doctor, and how she cured the plague, and how evil wizards mostly came to an end. The end.